How do you choose a good natural skincare gift? You can tell almost everything from 5 things: how short the ingredient list is, whether anyone will tell you where the plants came from, what small batch actually means on that label, whether the jar is fresh, and whether the person giving it can tell the story. We are InVine Botanicals in Tallahassee, Florida. We grow our own herbs, infuse them ourselves, and make every product by hand. So we know which questions a maker can actually answer and which ones they quietly cannot. Here is how to read a handmade skincare gift before you buy it, whether you buy ours or somebody else's. Check 1. Turn the jar around and actually read the ingredients. Do not count them, read them. On a good botanical balm, every line is an oil, a wax, a plant, or vitamin E, and you can pronounce all of them. A long list is not automatically a bad sign, but it is worth knowing why it gets long. Most of those extra names are there to do a job that water created. Water and oil do not mix, so a water-based cream needs an emulsifier to hold them together. Water also grows things, so it needs a preservative to stop that. A balm contains no water at all, so it needs neither. That is the whole reason the list can stay honest. So, on a waterless balm, an emulsifier and a preservative are 2 things you should not need to see at all. If they are on the label anyway, it is worth understanding what job they are doing. One more thing to look for on that list: the word fragrance, or parfum. It is a legal catch-all, and it can stand for a great many things you will never see named. Check 2. Ask where the plants came from. This is the question most brands cannot answer, and it is the one that separates a maker from an assembler. Most natural skincare is built on ingredients that arrive ready-made: an extract or a few drops of essential oil stirred into a plain carrier oil at the end. That is normal, and it is not a scandal. But it does mean nobody can tell you which bed the plant grew in or what week it was cut. A grower can. Every herb in our balms is grown in our own garden here in Tallahassee. It is cut by hand at its peak, dried on screens, and steeped whole in oil, so the plant itself becomes the base of the balm. Essential oils do appear in our formulas, but only as a finishing note for aroma, a whisper on top of that whole herb base, never in place of it. So look for a brand that names the plant, names the place, and shows you the garden. If a maker grows it, they will tell you, because it is the hardest thing in this business to fake. Check 3. Work out what small batch actually means here, because the phrase is on almost everything now, and it is almost never defined. Here is what it means when it's real. It is a deliberate production choice, not a description of how small a company is. It means the maker pours a finite batch, and that batch is numbered and dated, so a jar can be traced back to the harvest that made it. It also means nothing sits in a warehouse for a year waiting for demand to show up. We pour in small batches and never stockpile, which is the entire point of working this way. So the test is simple. Does the jar carry a batch number and a date? If it does, someone is keeping track. If it does not, small batch is just a word printed on a label. Check 4. Freshness and whether you can verify it. Botanical oils are perishable in a way that synthetics are not. They oxidize. The infusion alone takes 6 to 8 weeks in cool, dark conditions, so a real botanical balm was already months in the making before it ever reached a shelf. What you do not want is for it to have spent another year sitting on one. So look for a date on the jar, and look for vitamin E on the ingredient list. Vitamin E is an antioxidant, and it is there to slow that oxidation down and keep the oil smelling of the plant. It is not a preservative, and it is not doing a preservative's job. In an anhydrous balm, nothing needs preserving because there is no water in it for anything to grow in. Check 5, and this one applies only to gifts. Can the person handing it over tell the story in one sentence? A gift is a thing you have to explain. Handing someone a jar and saying it is nice, balm is not really a gift, it is an object. Handing them a jar and saying the woman who formulated this grew the rosemary that went into it in her own garden is a gift. One has a brand behind it. The other has a person, a garden, and a season. So here's what is actually inside the set we make and how it got there, because it begins months before anyone thinks about a gift box. The herbs are cut by hand in the morning when the aromatic oils are at their highest and carried straight indoors. They dry on mesh screens for 4 to 9 days in the dark at around 76 degrees until a leaf snaps cleanly instead of bending. Then the whole dried herb goes into a jar, is covered with organic oil, and sits for 6 to 8 weeks in cool, dark conditions, never in the sun, which would cook the character straight out of it. The oil is strained, warmed gently, blended with beeswax from a beekeeper down the road, and a little vitamin E, then poured and capped by hand. Every jar in that box is the end of a chain that started with a seed. That is the part a gift box cannot manufacture, and it is the part worth paying for. Our set holds 3 balms, and each one is a different aromatic character rather than a different promise. Bug Bite Balm is the bright citrus one, lemongrass, lemon balm, rosemary, sweet basil, and lemon mint, all grown in our beds, finished with a whisper of tea, tree. Breathe Free Balm is the crisp one, built on garden peppermint, spearmint, and lemon thyme, finished with peppermint and eucalyptus for a cool, clean aroma. And Muscle Revive Balm is the warm one, with ginger, turmeric, and cayenne grown in the same beds. 3 moods, 1 method. They arrive in a wood box with an ingredient card for each balm, so the story tells itself and the person giving it does not have to remember any of this. If you're choosing for someone who already owns everything a shop sells, that is usually the winning move. Give them the thing a shop cannot restock overnight. It suits the gardener, the person who is always outdoors, and the one quietly building a shelf of things that came from plants rather than a lab. So, to recap, count the ingredients, ask who grew the plants, check the jar for a batch number and a date, look for vitamin E in a jar that has not been sitting, and choose the one with a story the giver can actually tell. Do that, and you will choose well from us or from any honest maker. Our garden-grown gift set is at InVineBotanicals.com. Thanks for spending a little time with us.